right, in this recording, we're going to go over some ideas on how to put textures on here. So it's a little bit a hybrid procedural, and also we're going to kind of do kind of like what we did with our decals, but not use all the maps in the decal. We're just going to use like normal maps and so forth. We're just using the material side of it, and I'll show you what that looks like down the road. So again, we have our form here, and we're going to go ahead and add some color. But before that, I want to get a nice color tone, so I need to find the value of it. And so I'm going to go into my images, and again, all these images, all these TIFF images, every one of them, they're about 9 megabytes to 10 megabytes each. And so these are on Canvas in the file folder. So I'm going to go ahead and open up in Photoshop, and you can see what I was doing a little bit earlier, and we're going to cover this in just a second. But we're going to go ahead and go up here, and I'm going to use my color or eyedrop tool or color picker. And we're going to go and find kind of a mid-tone of this grasshopper, which is not green like Jiminy Cricket, but is actually got this kind of nice brown undertone. So I'm going to go ahead and click this area, and so it's kind of a brown, and I am going to hit Command A, and then I'm going to use my big paintbrush tool, or let's see where that is. It's a bucket tool. Come on. I always hide it, and we'll find it soon. Bucket tool, and then I'm going to dump on top of this whole scene. All right, so I'm going to zoom out. All right, and I'm going to duplicate this layer. Well, actually, I'm going to make a layer. So maybe I pull up Photoshop so I can see my layers. Apple Z, and we're going to create a new layer, and I'm going to get rid of this one, delete, yes. And then I'm going to dump using my dump tool. And you're like, what the heck is he doing? All right, so this is, I was trying to get RGB value out of Photoshop, but it's a little bit different. And I'm just going to show you kind of what I went through. So RGB is 148, 128, 69 for this color. And for some reason in Substance, it does 0.168, and the colors were not coming out. So this is my easiest way of bringing over a color, a dynamic color. So I'm going to go ahead and save as. And I'm not going to save it in that TIFF. I'm going to actually do go into my Grasshopper and not decals. Actually, I'm going to do decals. All right, I made a subfolder here earlier for decals when I was kind of practicing this out. All right, so we're just going to hit base underscore color. And we're going to save that out as, let's just keep it Photoshop, that's fine. All right, so we're going to hit save, hit OK. And we're going to go into our substance, and we should have this looking pretty good. You should have already had that baked out. And I'm going to go ahead and create a base color. I'm going to go ahead and delete that bottom one, and we're going to go up to our base color right here. And here, I'm going to use this color picker in just a second and select that color that we just made. So I'm going to go and import that color, or that JPEG, or that PSD, add resources, and we're going to go to Grasshopper and decal and base color. That is a PSD. And we're going to tell it a texture, and we're going to tell it to go to our Grasshopper project, hit import. All right, so hopefully it shows up here. And this is a long-winded way of saying a specific color I want for this. So I'm going to go to my base color, use my eyedropper, left click and a hold down. So whatever it rolls over will change color. Now in theory, I should have been able to go and have my photographic image in the background and color pick it, but for some reason it's not working. So I'm having to do this, all right? All right, so now we have this dynamic awful green color, okay? But again, this is just a start. This is the base color, just like you would a base primer paint for a house, for interior or exterior. All right, so now we're going to add another fill layer. Okay, and just like with the dumpster, we're going to click on here, add a black mask, and select that, and right click again, and I'm going to add a generator. We're going to select our generator, and we're going to go ahead and start getting this dirty. All right, so immediately we're going to start getting some color, and we're seeing some really weird seams here, and this is where the UV map scene was working earlier. I tried to see if I can fix that. I know that was happening earlier. Okay, so right there, using triplanar instead of false, hit true, and that will fix that. Okay, that was an issue for me big time earlier, so work on that. All right, so dirt level, you can kind of work on this. I think it was pretty good where it was. Actually, you could leave it default, and again, you're adding layers and layers, and then we can go back and start refining it and dialing it in correctly. Again, we're just trying to create some surface tension on here. So we're going to go back to our color, our base color. So we don't want it gray. We actually want these kind of grooves in here. If we look at our image, it's basically really dark in these areas. So we're starting to create that, okay? So I'm going to go to my base color, and I'm going to use my color picker and try to find this awful puke green. And I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to pull down and just kind of darken that. Maybe a little bit more, not too grotesque, maybe a little bit more brown, organic. All right, you can always readjust this. All right, and right now we don't have any height, so there's no bumpiness, but I do want to add a little bit of roughness to it. Again, that is that sheen. So if I hit my shift and right mouse, you can start to see that sheen. All right, so this is key. We want this to look organic. We don't want it like super slick, like it's a McDonald's toy from 1984. We want to keep some good organic tones to it. All right, so I think I had my height a little bit high. I think keep it very minimal. I think I have it like 0.0069 or something like that. Again, this is just to start the basically just a quick basic steps of getting some dirt and grime on here. Okay, so next we're going to add another layer. Okay, again, we're going to add a black mask. Right click, add a generator. We're going to do another generator. And this time we're going to do curvature. Okay, maybe, let's see, maybe metal edge. Metal edge or curvature, who knows? Let's do metal edge. All right, it's a little bit squeakier, a little bit more brash. So again, use triplanar. We want yes or true. You don't want that seam ripping through. Again, we've got this awful white color, but again, we're just trying to add a little bit more dirt and so forth. So grunge amount, you can add that, grunge scale. Play around with this. And I'm not really feeling this one, so I don't like this one. So we're gonna go to curvature. And I think I like the curvature. We're going to play around with the global balance. Contrast, you can play around with this. And global invert. I'm not really liking this one either. All right, let's try a different one. Fiberglass, where? I don't know what I used last time. I know I used dirt. Let's do light. Okay, I'm liking the light, and maybe we can invert this. Right here you can see that line. So make sure you have that turned on. So let's invert that. Well, maybe I do like that. So Ooh, that one's awful. All right, I'm sorry I'm eating up your time here. All right, I'm not liking that one at all. All right, so basically I went with 2 generators. Not really too keen on this one, so we can actually probably delete it. But anyways, I'm just trying to give you some ideas on how to put some surfaces on there. So again, I'm going to go really dark with this. And you can see that hard line showing up really quickly. We want to go up onto here and do a tri-planar. Hopefully we get rid of that line. May need to go through here and make sure that is that little detail is off. Let's see if we turn it on, off. I'm just going to leave it there. All right, so basically this is putting a hard edge there, but we do have the triplanar on. All right, so really quickly, and I'm sorry I kind of went through it kind of slowly, but if we turn this on and off, you can just see it just adds a little bit more depth of color. Again, we can put another bumpiness on there to start breaking up that surface. But if I go over, and you can start to see it's breaking up that surface. So I am going to go up on my height and just bring up a little bit of roughness to this. Let's see any changes in here. Ooh, Lord have mercy. All right, so baby steps with this stuff. I'm just going to pull this down just to give it a little bit of, let's see what happens when we take off the metallic. It's not as shiny when we pull it down. And the roughness is definitely shiny. We want to just dial that back. And I'm just using my shift and right, and you can just start to see the color changes in here. All right, so looking pretty good. Again, we just did a color pick of Photoshop of this form. We brought it in as this big base color. We did a color picker, and we put 2 generators on there. So you can kind of see what it would look like without any material on it, and it's pretty boring. But the cool thing about these generators and procedural textures is it really gives some dynamics to these edges. And so that's why I did those curvature edges and the generator, because it sharpens that up a little bit more. Again, we could go really black with those. Now that I'm looking at it, we could probably make it even a darker tone. Maybe not for that one. Let's try this one. Okay, so you can see how dark that gets. I'm gonna leave it like it was. All right, so really quickly you can dial this stuff back and forth, but again, baby steps. Don't do grand gestures. Just fill it in slowly over time. All right, so what we're gonna work on next is go into Photoshop. And I think I had the Photoshop image in there, and then I took it away. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this. And you can start to see what we're going to work on, kind of a base material just for the face area. And so what we're trying to do is something that we can project in here and start to overlay and start building up our texture for our cricket. So we're going to go back to our folder. I'm going to right click and open with. You guys should go ahead and download all these. You can do that when you're asleep or whatever. It will take a while to download all of them. So we are going to duplicate this layer, hit okie dokie, and then I'm going to delete this layer. And what we want to do is go ahead and use our magic wand and select all that white stuff and hit Command D to undo our scene. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and start, we know we're going to make a kind of a texture for just the face and also just for the eyeballs too. So we're going to kind of put both of those in one scene. So I'm just using my marquee tool and making some marquee and deleting some of this data that we don't need. All right, so Command D will deselect, and then Command T, or Windows T, I'm not sure what it is on a PC. So I'm going to kind of scale this up, not too big because we can scale it up in just a second. All right, and then I'm going to use my probably lasso tool or polygon tool, and I'm just going to go around here and roughly select the eyeball, and we actually want this eyeball to project onto the eyeball, so we have a starting point of color. This isn't going to be our final, but again, gives us a kind of a color tone or range of what we're going to do for the eyeball. Okay, this is kind of tedious, but again, if we want to make this look realistic, it's a smart move. All right, so I just hit Command C, I hit Command V, and then I'm going to move that over to the side here. All right, so what we want to do is probably keep using this tool. I'm going to go ahead and kind of get rid of some of the stuff that we're just kind of focusing on that face, right? Believe it or not. And then we're going to hit delete, maybe go down to that layer, hit delete, and Command D will undo that. And again, use my tool however you want to do it. You guys are probably quicker and faster at Photoshop than I am, so Command D. And I'm going to take this and maybe zoom it up a bit. Enter. I'll move this over to center. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that eyeball. We just did that earlier. Should have deleted it when I had the chance, I'm sorry. So we're not a big deal. And just hit delete and then Command D or Windows D, whatever computer that you are on. All right, so what we want to do is basically bring this into Painter, and what we want to do is use this as kind of a rough starting point for our color. So it's not the greatest photo. As you get up close, it gets really pixel based or pixely. And so what we want to do is just kind of use this as a starting point. Then we're going to start penning on top of it and really get it nice and sharp. So don't get this is going to be perfect the first time. Just use this as a starting point. All right, so we're going to use our very famous clone tool. And again, you guys should be really proficient at these Photoshop tools. And if not, definitely, I don't know when you have free time, but start learning them over the winter break or whenever. So what we're trying to do is once we project this onto our own surface and ZBrush, we have our own way of dealing with the surface, right? Because we hand drew these little crevices and so forth. So they're not going to line up with whatever we project on there. The eye's not going to project on there correctly. So we just kind of want some broad information on there, and so we want to paint it. So what we want to do is kind of delete the information that's here, but kind of give us an overall tone of what this looks like. All right, so with the clone tool, and I have my clone tool at a flow rate of 79 and opacity at 47. So I'm going to go up to 77 and 79. And with the clone tool, if I hit my option key, and again, hopefully that's the same on a PC, if I click on that, it will basically subsample that area and then paint it over here. All right, and so what I'm trying to do is get rid of that line right here. We want just kind of a flat, boring texture across the board. And so again, you may have to go up and down on your size of your brush. Right now it's 99, so I'm going to go down a little bit smaller and then go in here and start getting rid of that harsh line that we have. All right, and what we're trying not to do is not create mud, but we're trying to create a nice, beautiful look. And again, this is really, it's not bad, but it wasn't done with like a micro filter or anything like that for the photograph. So this is the best we can do. I mean, this is a small object, right? So we're just trying to get rid of this line. And so we're just trying to smooth out this data. All right, there's many ways to texture this, but I'm trying to get you guys to at least adhere to maybe some photorealism techniques that we can use on the fly here. All right, so I'm just going to keep kind of meeting in the middle here, grabbing some over here, and just getting rid of these harsh lines that we have created from the original surface. All right, again, you don't want to create like mud, which you can easily do, which you can kind of see what I'm doing right here is just kind of slowly granulating into mud. All right, but this gives us some color tones. All right, we just want to get rid of these hard edges that are in the photo. Okay, so again, clone tool is great for creating textures. So really get used to using this. This will be using this for your whole entire career. This tool is really amazing. All right, so I'm going to get any highlights like that, try to dampen that down because we don't really want highlights. We have a wonderful program to do all the highlights for us when we bake this stuff out into Unreal. All right, so I'm actually doing a really bad job. So let's just keep doing this. Just really try to break up that surface. All right, I'm just kind of extending this out just so it doesn't look like a straight edge. All right, this looks good. And again, use spacebar to move this down, and Alt. And you want to get rid of all these white highlights where it was reflecting that light. We want to put as much color on there as possible and get rid of, desaturate that white. All right, this is a long video, so I may have to split this into several halves. All right, I'm just trying to pull out all that white that was in there. All right, so what we have is a pretty good piece of color. Right here we have a hard edge. So again, take that dark black and just kind of create more of a softer tone or textures here. Okay, really break that up so it's almost like camouflage, and it's just not really, it's really hard to tell that this was once an edge. All right, again, try not to make it look too muddy, which is really easy to do. Basically, that's kind of what I did, was make it look like mud. All right, so the very last step, we want to kind of soften this edge. Again, we're using an alpha channel, so as we bleed this over, it has a nice bleed. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of soften, just kind of click away here. This is where our eye is taking place. Just kind of filling this in. Again, this should be pretty in proportion to what we've modeled. I'm gonna clean this up, that's a little hard edge right here. Take your time with this too. This can really look really bad really quickly. All right, I'm actually gonna probably stop there very shortly, and then we'll do another tutorial, just kind of, this is taking a while and I don't want to bore you guys. So let's go ahead and crop that. So we want a 1-to-1 ratio. You type 1 and 1 here. This will make a perfect square. And I'm gonna hit return. All right, so it's cropped it, hit return again. And I'm gonna make that eyeball a little bit bigger. So Command T, and I'm holding the Option button to keep it constrained. And then Command T for this guy. Then holding Option, scaling this up, and trying to get as much pixel ratio in here as possible. All right, we're gonna go to here, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit Enter. Again, I would probably prefer to have like this kind of smudge out, but I think it's all right. So we do want to get rid of that glare. And so we're going to use our famous clone tool again. Make sure you're on the right layer where the eyeball is. Hit Alt or Option. And just slowly get rid of some of that. Okay, may not get rid of it perfectly. Beep. Don't do that. All right, pretty bad. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and save this. Again, this is kind of a base color, and so we're gonna definitely work on this big time. So we're gonna go ahead and save as, and we're gonna call it face underscore I, so we just know what the heck we're doing. And I'm gonna go to my decals, and I'm gonna save this as a PSD or a Photoshop. That'll give you a .psd extension. So we're gonna go ahead and hit save. Okay, and we're gonna go back, and I know this is a super long tutorial, so we're gonna go ahead and use our paintbrush and do a separate layer. And we're gonna go back and import this amazing resource that we just made, the eye and face PSD. All right, and we're gonna tell it to be a texture, bring it to my Grasshopper, hit import. And we're going to go ahead, and once we have this selected as our paint, and we go down to our properties to base color, I think we want to go ahead and hit projection, and I think that's where we add our base color. So we're going to kind of drag this over to our base color. And last time we did a decal, we did normal, metallic, roughness, and height, because we wanted the textures from underneath to kind of be blocked, because like a decal and so forth doesn't sit on that surface correctly. So one of the things we want to do is make sure we are doing symmetry. So make sure this symmetry, this is key. If you don't do symmetry, you're going to have to do both sides. So hit symmetry, and whatever you paint on one side will be on the same on the other. All right, so I'm going to hit my Option tool and try to fit this face in there. And also we can hit S. As you remember, we can kind of scale this in or rotate it, and I think we can zoom in and out if you remember. All right, so I'm just going to hit S and kind of get that in the other direction like it was before. And then in the background, I'm going to kind of place my face, and I really wish I spent the extra time to make sure that head was a little bit more extended. Right now I'm really close to these edges. So when I hit S, we'll get you into this mode, and you can kind of turn it. I'm just kind of turning it so everything kind of fits on there correctly. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and then you're just kind of getting it ready to spray paint, right? So I'll push this in a little bit here, and I'm going to go ahead and start painting onto that surface. Okay. So we have a whole bunch of green showing through, and I'm not sure why, but here we go. All right, and we have some of that eye missing. So I'm going to rotate and hit my S and pull some more material up around it. Just going to kind of paint in here. All right, and then we're going to do the same with the eye. S. And I'm going to zoom into the eye. The Alt. That eye is all over the map. And again, we're going to paint over this. This is just to throw some color on it. And then I'm just going to put some textures on that eye. And our flow rate and our size and our stroke is 100%. And I just overly sprayed and put that on there. So I'll hit Apple Z. All right, so we're just going to go ahead, go back to our color here and see what we have done. All right, so now we have a little bit of spillage. I did a pretty bad job with that, but you kind of get the idea how to get these colors onto that surface. So if you can see, just kind of overtook the underpainting that we want. So we're gonna maybe pull this underneath here. And then you can start to see, if we hit shift, you can start to see those textures from the other layers start to show through. So if I turn this on and off, you can see how those layers build up on each other. All right, so I'm gonna kind of stop it there. We got a lot of white, we got some bad eyeball spillage here, but again, I just wanted to throw some color so we can go back with a color picker and then really start to dial that in. But for really quickly, if we go to our original image here, you can start to see that carrying over to here really quickly. Again, I didn't spill this out too far. I should have feathered it out in Photoshop. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I meant here we should have created a little bit fatter line and also filled in the eye area. But again, this is just really to kind of pave out some layers. But again, that's not bad for about 10 minutes worth of work. All right, I'm gonna stop because I know this is like a 20-minute video. All right, looking pretty good.